Rashee Rice was among the biggest winners in week 7. We'll tell you who else made the list next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we're taking a look at some of the biggest dynasty winners from week 7. We'll go to some teams that struggled a little bit and some quarterbacks that are having some issues. We'll also talk about some rookies, so make sure you guys tune in for that at the end of the show. But Fabs, let's start with Rashee Rice, who made his way back into the lineup after tearing his knee up in 2024 and then serving a 6-game suspension to start the year. 7 receptions for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 targets from Patrick Mahomes. He's officially back.
Yeah, and this is what we wanted, right? I mean, this is what we waited 6 weeks for. And he only played 33 snaps, but he still scored over 23 fantasy points. He's now scored 17 plus points in each of his last 4 games dating back to last year, in games that he actually started and finished. Like, he's that dude in Kansas City. You could tell, like, Patrick Mahomes loves having him back. It almost seemed like they wanted to get him into the end zone at least once in his return game. Mahomes is playing at an MVP and elite level from a fantasy perspective. Andy Reid obviously loves getting Rice integrated into this offense. If you have Xavier Worthy, maybe you're not real thrilled right now because the targets are going to go down and the opportunities are going to go down a bit. But Rashee Rice is what exactly we were hoping for and hoping he would be, and that is an alpha. And I got to be honest with you, and you and I have talked about this. I had said, and I think you agreed with me, that once he came back, there's a good chance that he is a top 10 to top 12 fantasy wide receiver the rest of the season. And he had a very good start to actually achieving that goal against what is a brutally bad Raiders team.
We should talk about what Rice has done in his last 10 games with Patrick Mahomes. He's averaging, Fabs, 85 receiving yards per game with Mahomes in his last 10 starts, 7 touchdowns during that stretch. We talked about him being a top 12 receiver, as you mentioned. And honestly, now that he's past the knee injury and he's past the suspension, that feels low. Like, I'm starting to look at some of these receiver rankings, and it's like, I love Drake London, right? There's no way I would take Drake London over Rashee Rice moving forward. Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas, Garrett Wilson, Ted McMillan. I would take Rice over all of these guys. He's only 25 years old, and he's in what I think is going to be one of the best offenses in the league moving forward. I think Rice is easily a top 10 dynasty receiver, maybe even higher.
Top 10 is, that's a no-brainer. There's no doubt about that. It depends just on how high you value him, right? I mean, I don't know that he's in the Ja'Marr Chase, CeeDee Lamb conversation, although he's younger. But Rice is right up there. When you're talking about some of the best young wide receivers in the league, you say top 10, I can probably suggest making an argument for top 5, especially with the situations going on around the league where all of these wide receivers are getting banged up, and now, Malik Neighbors is out for the rest of the season. So there's a world where Rashee Rice is an elite fantasy wide receiver for the rest of this season and into the next several seasons of his career.
All right, let's talk about some other winners in week 7. I can mention a couple. Jonathan Taylor scored 3 touchdowns again. He looked fantastic. Your guy, Drake May, got to give you credit because you were all in on Drake May before the season started. 21 of 23 for 222 yards and a touchdown. Also had 62 yards on the ground.
Love it.
Who else stood out to you here in week 7?
DeAndre Swift, and not only just week 7, but, the last few weeks. In week 6, he averaged 7.7 yards per carry. This week, it was over 6. Like, all of a sudden, Swift is just blown up. And I was disappointed in the Bears passing game yesterday because I liked Caleb Williams and I liked Rome Odunze, and they did nothing. It was all about the running game. And even Kyle Monangai, I mean, you've got to give him some love too. He was very good. And the snaps and the touches started to shrink a little bit between Swift and the rookie. But Swift is playing at a very high level right now. And I don't know that I would suggest selling high on him, although that might be a good idea, because I feel like Monangai could end up being like the dude in Chicago in the future. But right now, DeAndre Swift is helping you win in your fantasy leagues, and he has been phenomenal. And he's always been a guy. I mean, he had a really slow start to the season. I think he scored more than 10 points once in his first like 3 games, and then lately he's been very good. So DeAndre Swift is a guy that you're going to be plugging into your lineup every week and maybe trying to sell high on right now.
And I want to mention A.J. Brown. It was a little rough for A.J. Brown in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think it was, 34 total yards.
It was more than a little rough. It was real rough.
And then he started to bounce back a little bit more. It's that squeaky wheel gets the grease type of situation. He only had 6 targets against the Vikings, 4 catches, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He stabilized things a little bit. And this is why you don't give up on a talent like A.J. Brown on a team that's going to be really good, like the Philadelphia Eagles. Eventually, they're going to figure it out. Devontae Smith also had a huge game in this one. I don't know if A.J. Brown's ever going to be a top 10, top 12 dynasty receiver again, but I think he was being a little undervalued coming out of September.
And I got to be honest, too. Minnesota came into that game. They had allowed the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Like, they were tough on the perimeter. They were tough on slot receivers, and the Eagles just cooked them. And, it was good to see, because what has been missing from the Eagles offense, it's that passing game. And that's where A.J. Brown had struggled over the first month of the season, where Devontae Smith had been held to single digits in 4 of his first 6 games. But now I wonder if what I predicted was going to happen back in the preseason is starting to happen. Do you remember what I said? I said that Saquon Barkley is going to regress, and they may have to lean on the pass a little bit more. And that's what we saw yesterday. Saquon Barkley is not the same running back. I preached to everybody who would listen. Don't draft him high. It's not going to happen again. And he's been bad. All right. And it's weird to say Saquon Barkley, he's been bad. And I wonder if the lack of effectiveness that Barkley has, because they don't have anybody behind him. I mean, not going to start using Tank Bigsby and Saquon in a committee. I wonder if maybe the leaning on the passing game is going to be a little bit more prominent. They're going to want to try to get Barkley going, but if he can't, if the wear and tear is just too much and his body is just shot right now, maybe this Eagles offense does become more often what we saw against the Vikings, which is pass friendly. A.J. Brown's hot. Devontae Smith is suddenly meeting expectations. I think that could happen, Marcus, because Saquon Barkley is not just suddenly going to get his 2024 form back, because they just keep feeding him the football. And this is the reason why I didn't want Saquon in the preseason. That's why I didn't want Saquon this year. That's why I told you to trade him in Dynasty, because the cliff came quick, and he's fallen off of it.
I won't be surprised if we get a couple games coming up where he rips off some long runs and that maybe artificially inflates his yards per carry. But I think you're just not seeing the 10, 12, 15-yard runs that consistently like we saw last year. It is a lot of 1 and 2 yard gains for Barkley, and he hasn't hit those home runs yet. And now that's where you're really feeling the lack of production. So I think bigger days are coming, but you're right. Like, he just physically, he doesn't look the same. And I don't know if the offensive line's not helping out as well. I mean, they're pretty healthy up there outside of Cam Judkins, who got a little bit banged up on Sunday. I mean, listen, you were right. This was a great call. Once you get that many touches in a single season, it's really hard to produce those same numbers in year 2.
Like I said, brother, I mean, when you've got the curse of 370 going against you, when you've had 400 carries combined regular and postseason, when you look at 2,000-yard rushers and what they've done in the following year, and he's on the cover of the Madden game. I'm sorry, I'm going to bring it up because it's fun. Saquon's not Saquon this year, and he's not going to be Saquon this year. And I got to be honest with you. We're going to talk about a guy in Quinshon Judkins that I would take over him all day long in redrafts.
Wow.
Right now.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a little bit. Let's talk about some fantasy stars on bad teams and what you should do with them. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried behind hundreds of apps that slow down your teams, and they simply don't work. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a service. That is why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use, and it gives companies one source of truth for their people, their data, and everything they touch. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That is rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun way to add more excitement to your football season. All you have to do is pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you are in the game. It's fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Fabs, let's talk about some fantasy stars on bad teams. And I want to start with Justin Fields, because this is a conversation that you and I had over the summer about how do we value Justin Fields, a not good real life NFL quarterback, but a fantasy superstar because of his rushing ability. He got benched for Tyrod Taylor in week 7. Now, Taylor did not look good at all in this game either.
No.
But now I think there's a chance that Fields is on the bench. And so how do we handle this now, and what should be the philosophy kind of going forward with these types of quarterbacks?
So I don't want to defend Fields too much because he looks terrible as a passer. 51% of his passes have been completed in the last 2 games. That's horrible. His passing EPA for the season is negative 28.5. Here's the thing, though. The Jets offensive line is a lot of like premier, high draft pick dudes. He's been sacked 22 times. Like only Cam Ward's been sacked more.
But that might be a Fields problem than
holding onto the ball. Yes. His pressure rate though is 49.1%. That's the highest in the league. So it's kind of like a perfect storm of just terribleness. Is that a word? Fields holds onto the ball too long and he's getting a ton of pressure. And so he's not getting the ball out. He doesn't trust his receivers that aren't named Garrett Wilson. But
I also wonder
yesterday.
He holds onto the ball and invites more pressure. He's just not somebody that's going to get rid of the ball. Like, I think let's talk about our guy Dak Prescott. You are wearing our Cowboy jersey right now. He gets rid of the ball so quick so that the pressure doesn't come. That's just not something Fields is doing right now. And it's something that he's never done.
Yeah, Fields has always been a subpar passer. But again, we talked about it. He'd been a subpar passer and a top 10 fantasy quarterback because of his rushing skills. But he hasn't been putting up those rushing totals over the last few weeks. He had earlier in the season. And one of his best games was a complete garbage time game against our beloved Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
The Jets are just a dumpster fire right now. They're a dumpster fire in that meme of the dog drinking coffee in the burning room and saying, this is fine. It's not. And they don't have Garrett Wilson. We don't know when he's coming back. Breece Hall's been affected. The only reliable option that fantasy owners could find in New York wearing green uniforms is Garrett Wilson, and he's injured right now. So listen, I don't know if Aaron Glenn's going to go back to Fields. I don't know what he's going to do in terms of the quarterback situation. Tyrod, as you mentioned, was not much better. But Fields has been worse than I thought. And the offensive line and the combination of him holding on to the football has resulted in a lot of sacks, a ton of pressure. And I just don't see the Jets getting better. Like, I was listening to Mike Francesa, who I love because I grew up in the tri-state area. And Mike is wondering if the biggest story for the Jets this year is if they actually don't win a game all year long. They're that bad.
They will, but I think from a dynasty perspective, this is something to remember moving forward. Is it's really easy to be intrigued by these guys who are awesome runners, but are bad quarterbacks, and they just don't get that long of a leash. If you can't throw the ball, it's going to affect everything on offense. And your receivers, like Garrett Wilson, are eventually going to start complaining. This is what happened with Anthony Richardson with the Colts. Like, Anthony Richardson was an awesome fantasy football quarterback because of all the things he could do as a runner, but because he's not a actually good quarterback, he's just not going to play. And that's why, was it a year ago at this time, Anthony Richardson still being valued as a top 12 dynasty quarterback? Be very, very careful of this type of quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And you know, like I'll take the L on this one because I liked Fields because of his rushing ability and because I figured the Jets were going to run the ball a lot. Clearly, I did not foresee this team being a complete and just utter dumpster fire in the first year under Aaron Glenn. They're going to have to make some changes after the season is over. I don't think Glenn's going anywhere, but they certainly are going to turn around some of those coordinators. But it's been bad, to the point where you're going to start seeing Justin Fields get cut in redrafts. And in Dynasty, no one's going to want to touch him with a 39.5-foot pole. It's almost Christmas, right? That's a great
thing. Well, it's just because at this point, like, the Jets are going to draft a quarterback next year.
No doubt about it.
And Fields is either going to be a backup to the rookie quarterback, or he's going to be cut and he's going to be a backup somewhere else. Like, his time as a week one starter is over. He's going to be a backup quarterback. And from a fantasy and dynasty perspective, he's somebody that if he ever gets in the lineup, you can play on that given week, but he's not somebody that we're valuing at all moving forward. Some quarterback that we are valuing is Jayden Daniels, who continues to struggle to stay healthy this year. There was a big push to put him inside the top 3 quarterbacks this summer behind Josh Allen, behind Lamar Jackson. Now, some of this isn't his fault. The receivers have been banged up. Terry McLaurin has not been the same all year. He's hardly played. Deebo Samuel missed week 7. But now we've got Daniels dealing with another hamstring injury. And again, this was a little bit of the fear with Daniels compared to some of these other quarterbacks, is he's so frail. You were always worried about the durability.
Washington Redskins / football team / Commanders fans are having Robert Griffin III fever dreams right now. Like, oh no, not again. And to be honest with you, like, the numbers, Daniels is averaging 19 points a game. He had almost 18 points in that game against the Cowboys before he got hurt. So, like, and he did it without McLaurin and without Deebo and without Noah Brown, if you want to go deeper. His completion percentage has dropped from 69% to 61%, but that also, I think part of it is, your number one wide receiver has been out all year for the most part. So that's going to hurt him. But you remember, like, back in the preseason, I said one of the 2 top rookie quarterbacks from 24 was going to have a sophomore slump. And I could not buy into the fact that it wouldn't be, Jayden Daniels. It's got to be Bo Nix. And I understand.
Bo Nix is kind of for 3.5 quarters of these games.
I get it. But again, our friend Elliot Harrison always said, your best ability is availability. So if you're hurt, I listen, that means that you're not available to me. That means you're hurting my fantasy team. And we don't know how long Daniels is going to be out at the time of this recording, but I'm guessing he could miss some time, which means that he is going to end up going down at the end of the season as a player that was too highly valued and didn't live up to expectations. And in Dynasty, obviously, things are much different. And you're going to just re-rack and hope that he's better in 2026 or maybe later in the season when he eventually does come back from the hamstring injury. But at this point right now, Jayden Daniels has unfortunately done you more harm than good in fantasy.
One more player that I want to mention. Now, he's not necessarily on a bad team, although they kind of look like that on Sunday. Brian Thomas Jr. We talked about him a lot this summer. the production, yes, last year with Mac Jones was better, but his production wasn't bad on Sunday because of Trevor Lawrence. He just can't hold on to the football at all. He
There
looks
was a
like
lot. Yeah.
his confidence is completely shooken
Yep.
right now. We also saw Travis Hunter have the best game of his career.
Yep.
And I wonder, Fabs, like if we're getting to a point where Jacksonville is going to make Travis Hunter the feature guy in this offense and Brian Thomas goes back to being a compliment is that's not the right word, but more not the focal point because I just don't think he can handle it right now.
Here's my rebuttal to that. Their pass defense is horrible. Matthew Stafford threw 5 touchdowns against them. Devontae Adams had 3 touchdowns against them. They need more help on the defensive side than they do on the offensive side. And I am concerned that, well, listen, and you know me, I said last week, I'm a big chicken. I don't like the way that things were going for Travis Hunter, but their pass defense needs Hunter way more than their offense does, Marcus. And that concerns me a little bit. They're terrible.
But their offense was horrendous
points
though.
To the perimeter. They can't stop anybody. And I wonder if Liam Cohen decides, well, I need him on defense more than I need him on offense. You know, you got Washington over there. Again, no great shakes. De'Ami Brown, you'll get Brenton Strange back. Brian Thomas Jr. there. Their offense, though, Travis Etienne, remember on Friday, what did we say? Sit him. Travis Etienne's gone in a can the last 3 games. Yeah. And their offense can't get the job done. And that's my concern. Like, do they decide we need Travis Hunter on defense more than we need him on offense? Or are we just going to put him on offense and let him shine and get our asses kicked, by 4 touchdowns every week?
Their offense was just as bad in the first half. So I honestly, I don't know what the answer is. It's not a bad idea either to have him play more defense because I do think he can help out there. But I think the overall point is something is going on with Brian Thomas Jr., whether it's he doesn't like the role in his offense. His confidence is gone. He just looks like a shell of himself. And considering what we saw last year, it's very, very strange. All right, let's talk about some rookie stars from week 7, including our guy, Quinshon Judkins. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else, from footwork to breathwork. Athletes sweat all of the details, and Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, with smooth handling to incredible controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. And like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it gives you so many different ways to play. Like, I love moneyline parlays. I also like going to check out the futures market. Like, there's nothing better than a Tuesday morning when you go check to see what your favorite team's odds are to make the playoffs, win their division, and it's all available on FanDuel. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got just a little bit something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Podcast. 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Fabs, let's talk about some rookies. I wanted to talk about Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, because both of those guys were outstanding. Let's start with Judkins, because he's a guy that you and I have been pretty bullish on at least compared to the Dynasty community. And I think you're seeing it here in week 7. I mean, we know Miami's run defense is not good, but Judkins was awesome.
We got to come up with like a song for him. Quinshon, Super Judkins, or something like that.
I'll put it in
awesome,
ChatGPT later.
I love this kid. And I had said last week, I promised everybody who listens to this program that he was going to have a big game against the Dolphins, and he wiped the floor with them. 3 touchdowns, over 26 fantasy points. He saw a 54% touch share, and he's averaging 15.3 points per game this year. And remember, 2 weeks ago, he had a complete stink bomb in there. He's better than Ashton Jennings, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Breece Hall. I mean, the list goes on and on. And here's what's more impressive. Judkins has seen 8+ men in the box 32% of the time. That's the 3rd most in the league among running backs who've carried the ball at least 110 times. So not only is he producing, he's doing it knowing that defenses are focusing on stopping him, and they can't. Quinshon Judkins is a guy that I think is going to be a stud in this league for a long, long time. And you know what? I will give the Browns credit. They make more bad decisions than maybe any franchise in the National Football League, but they took Judkins over Henderson. Henderson's been a complete dud, and Judkins is a stud. So for that reason, Cleveland Browns, well done. At least you got one right.
Let's talk about Judkins' dynasty value, because that's what I find really interesting, because he's being drafted as top 10 dynasty running back. Like, that's obvious now. But I think what's interesting is if you had Judkins right now, would you flip him for Marion Hampton, who is, I believe, RB5 right now on Dynasty League Football?
Whew, I don't know, brother. I don't. Here's the thing. The Chargers had Najee, and the Browns had nothing. And the Browns put all their chips in the middle of the table on Judkins, whereas the Chargers kind of did because they drafted Hampton in the first round, but they backed off a little bit because they already had a veteran running back there just in case it didn't work out. As much as I love Marion Hampton, I think there is an argument to be made that Judkins goes ahead of him and that you'd rather have him. I don't know if I'm going to make that argument, but it's darn close. And when you consider where each guy was drafted, that just shows how much of a bargain that Judkins was because of the off-field stuff that hurt his value.
What about, and I know this sounds like blasphemy, but what about Ashton Jennings? He's had some decent games, including a big game against the Bears, but 6 carries for 21 yards against the Chiefs. Last week, 23 carries for 75 yards against the Titans. This Raiders offense looks like a disaster right now. I know Cleveland's offense is bad as well, so like I get it, but they're both in bad situations, and Judkins is the one that's actually producing right now.
Isn't the NFL just drunk? I mean, every single week it becomes more and more intoxicated. Maybe. Where you can talk about Quinshon Judkins, considering where he was drafted, versus Ashton Jennings, and he was the #1 overall pick in Dynasty startups and rookie drafts. There's a world where Judkins maybe is the more desirable player. It's insane.
I'm going to ask on Twitter as soon as we get off of the show, like, what would you need to trade with Judkins to get Jennings? Because honestly, like, if I had Judkins right now in a Dynasty league, and I do, I've got him in several, and somebody offered me Ashton Jennings, I don't know that I'm like smash clicking accept right away.
No, I'm not. I got to think about it. Where the Raiders going is, I mean, I know the Browns aren't any good, but I mean, they got fight at least. The Raiders, I mean, like Chip Kelly's been a disaster. You know, Pete Carroll, I mean, maybe, you know, again, Seattle's a smart franchise. They got rid of Russell before he fell off a cliff, and they got rid of Carroll. He left, and what's he doing in Las Vegas right now? So there's an argument to be made that Quinshon Judkins is not even top 10, top 5 in Dynasty among running backs right now. There's an argument that can be made.
I'm going to give you 2 minutes on Jackson Dart, then we'll head out. Go ahead.
Oh, I love me some Jackson Dart, baby. I love him. You know, I loved him coming into the season. 19 plus points in 3 of his first 4 NFL starts. He had 28 against Denver in Denver without Malik Neighbors. That's bananas. Over the last 4 weeks. Right now, Patrick Mahomes, Dak, Bo Nix, who was awesome, and Stafford are the only quarterbacks who have more points than Jackson Dart. And dare I say, he's matchup proof. What did he do to the Eagles, who he's got this week? What did he do in Denver? I didn't like him this week. He's on pace to rush for almost 700 yards, and he didn't start the year as the starter. I love Jackson Dart. I loved him coming out of college. I didn't think he'd be this good this quick. I will say that. I don't think anybody did. But Jackson Dart, you know, you and I talked about this last week, I think with Matt. Is he not a top 10 dynasty quarterback right now?
Pretty easily.
Hell to the yes, he is. And he has lapped Cam Ward to the point where, real quick, funny story. Do you remember? Maybe you don't. Back in the preseason, I had a rookie-only draft in one of my dynasty leagues. And I told you that Jackson Dart went number 1. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay. I wouldn't mention the name of the person who did that because I don't want to embarrass him. Now he looks smarter than all of us. Tommy Dreamer, the wrestling icon, the hardcore icon. Tommy Dreamer, my pal, made that pick. And Tommy Dreamer, if you're listening to this podcast, and I'm going to text you to listen to it, I bow to your wisdom, my friend, because that ended up being maybe the ballsiest pick, and he's a Giants fan, the ballsiest pick I've seen in a rookie only. And so far, you look like gold, my friend. So unbelievable. That is the equivalent of hitting Ric Flair with a chair and pinning him 1, 2, 3 for the championship. Well done, Tommy.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.